Terry, does that not sound look low to you?
It looks high to me.
I agree.
See, I thought the opposite. The way when this first came out, the way Google was talking about like ranking, like you remember any SEOs thought they should advise their small clients with non-fucking e-commerce sites to switch to HTTPS secure so they would get better rankings and bullshit like that. 25% seems low to me, which Google when they see adoption rates of that low. I'll bet you that there's not much. We always, Terry, you and I always said there wasn't going to be much of a ranking boost, if anything, on this.
Right.
Literally, for anyone listening or watching in the future, our perspective has been simple. Google on its left hand tells you it wants that there's a ranking boost for making a faster site. And then Google in its right hand tells you to do a bunch of shit that's going to slow your site down. So literally, if you did both and listen to everything Google said, you'd break even. It's like,
okay, so David, I just was doing a pretty large project with pictures, right? So I'm trying to optimize this thing so it passes the frickin' Google test for speed. Now we're talking an e-commerce site that had literally over 100 calls, right? Because of all the pictures. Right? And Google had me optimizing these pictures to the point where the client made me do them all over again because the quality was so freaking low. Okay? So, now when anyone says they use the Google tool, I just say, yeah, okay, you waste your time. Don't bring me anything to do with it. Like, I don't want to know the scores.
No, but
it's all.
I gotta think. Yeah, but okay. Here's where my logic steps in. Here, hold on. Let me turn this thing off. Just since we're on the story. Here's where my logic steps in. Is that Google used to we used to fight Google. When Google would say something, we'd say fuck you. When Matt Cutts would put out a video, everyone would say, oh, do the opposite, etc., etc. And what I think Panda and Penguin and manual actions have finally had the effect Google wanted, which is SEOs and people that are in our world as marketers are literally eating everything they feed us. Instead of logically thinking about what ranks a site or what works, everyone's just eating what the fuck ever Google feeds us. They tell you to do something, we jump. They say how high. They say jump, we say how high. Not me, but a lot of SEOs, right? And that's what's getting silly. Go to HTTPS. Go to mobile friendly. Go to AMP. Go to this. Go to that. Go to the and again, in these Skype groups and Facebook groups and things, literally like little children asking me, oh, what do I do here? What do I do next? Google said this. Google said that. What do I do? And it's like, oh my God, you use your own fucking brain, figure it out through your analytics.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Dave, right? Here's the thing, and I'm sure Steve will agree with me, and probably Doc and Frank as well. These people don't really know how things work.
No.
So Google can tell them any kind of shit, and because Google, it's swallowed in huge bites, like they're literally puking on their shit.
Yeah. Oh, and it's not just in the organic. I mean, I've been doing seasonal stuff for the Christmas industry, lights and stuff, and every year we get an ad rep who comes up with this latest thing that they're doing, and it costs 10 grand before I turn the thing off. You want to give them a shot, but it's just even in house they don't really have a clue about how their own product works efficiently. It's all to them about making money. The layout of a page now is all based on optimizing the clicks and the bid for clicks and things like that. So it's just Google's out for Google. They're not out there. That whole user experience thing is bullshit.
Yeah, well, everything they do is for Google. When they put out a free tool, they're looking to gain something from it.
Yeah, but guys.
That's their nice guy.
We always believe Google is the enemy. This is almost what I'm saying. Is that the new generation is jumping through the hoops that Google puts before them, whereas we would always question. If anything, we were 80% not believing in anything Google said, and and 80% believing what we believed from our own studies and whatever. The newer generation seems to just jump through every hoop.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my
Oh,
funniest news title of the week.
Like, that's just ignorant. That's just stupid shit. Like,
Terry,
seriously.
this was my favorite news. This was my favorite news title of the week in my collection.
Wow.
Sites impacted by penguin cannot request manual pay. Do you really have to tell people this? Come on. Really? Is that news? Like, seriously, if your readers want to know that, then they should just go get a job at McDonald's or something.
No, but that's
Like, come on.
Yeah, you got to get. I like Jen. Yeah.
Hey,
No. Frank, this is not a judgment on Jen. This is a judgment on the fact that she is in tune with the industry better than I am. I got out of the news business. Okay, I got out of that business.
Yeah.
But if this is the kind of thing that are, and again, I'm part of Facebook and other groups full of young SEOs, and and these are the kind of questions that literally come up. So no, this is not a statement on Jen. This is a great site, and anyone watching, listening now or in the future, definitely put it on your feed reader if you have one of those archaic things. I do. But no, the fact that she feels the need to actually publish that tells you a lot about the current environment of the people in our industry.
And it's true. It's having gone to a few things recently, and just with the younger, my daughter does. Not SEO. She actually runs social for Campbell's at MEC, and I came in, hung out with some of her tech people, her supposed SEOs, and oh my God, they just don't have they're 20-something and they've got no history of any long-term.
But like I said earlier, though, they're not studying the history. They're not. Again, my music and I play music. They don't understand. There's something about this that they think new is fresh and fresh is new, and
that's the problem.
They don't give credit. They they don't understand. It's like you ask the average person who Danny Sullivan is nowadays, and they've got no clue. And yet, for all of he managed to monetize things pretty well for himself, but he did.
Do you know what's already happened? Because I guess the high turnover in our industry, there are people who don't even know who Matt Cutts is.
Yeah,
he's been
gone.
No, it happens. I'm not kidding you.
Matt is back.
Yeah.
For like an industry that
sort of.
you pretty much survive on looking at patterns is pretty stupid and not learn your history.
It's not really an industry. That's the problem. It's a fucking business. That's what it is. It's not an industry. It's a business, and there's a difference.
Okay.
That's
all sorts of industries.
That's why we can't agree on best practices, because every business is protecting their business, afraid that if it's not the way they do it, it's going to affect their business.
Oh, on some levels it does. Like especially, again, I hark back to the paid side. There are agencies that work on straight commission of the spend. Now that doesn't, they may as well just be working for AdWords because it doesn't matter to them, the conversion. I did a consulting job where I managed to increase the conversions that this one company got for less money, and the agency that hired me dropped me because I'd lost them commission. And I tried to tell them, hey, you bring it down low and then you bring the spend back up. You look better in the eyes of your client. They didn't give a shit. They're just about making money, just like Google. That
goes on for a long time. A lot of companies, when things are running well and conversion is good and everything, I've seen them. I've worked in some cases where I had a campaign working for the same company as another. We were in competition basically for the business. The other company actually ran really shitty campaigns that got a lot of clicks to make the bill higher. In the end, that's how I won the contract, by running a clean game, basically.
Exactly. It's just, and it's the agency model though. That's the thing. So you never, like you say, industry. they're never going to sit down and make, here's guidelines, here's, rules of the game or procedures, standard procedures, because it cuts into they're making them.
Well, I think the other problem too is that a lot of agencies, particularly when they get larger, they're gonna attract an awful lot of youngsters that they're not professional, they're not consultants, in terms of the ethical consultant. They're there, they're going to get paid on their success. They breed this culture of revenue generation. If you're not generating revenue, then you're not going to stay here. And even the smaller agencies, eventually, if they start out trying to be ethical and productive for their clients, they realize they can't compete, they're going to get left in the dust, so they start to gravitate towards that same philosophy.
I'm going to move the show along, boys. First week trying this. I thought this was interesting. And I think this almost brings us back to what we were just speaking about as far as how much do we trust what Google says. So Google, somebody asked them on Twitter and yada yada as the story goes, and Google says they don't understand text and images, which I find very suspect. The OCR technology, okay, the OCR, yeah, see, Steve's laughing already. Yeah, but no, you understand why I don't trust this, right, Steve? Okay.
What?
Okay, for any of those younger folks that we were talking about, Google has this thing called Google Books. Go check it out sometime. Another Google technology that came along after that was patented, that's why we would know about it, is called page segmentation. And what page segmentation was based on is looking at the DOM structure, meaning a rendered page, and understanding that page in boilerplate terms. What's a header, what's navigation, what's a footer, what's a right and left column, and what's content. Now, the patents I read on page segmentation always harken back in references to the OCR technologies they discovered through Google Books. Google Books was using the OCR to scan books, and the page segmentation came along because along that path they realized they had to understand titles, headings, paragraph breaks, and so on to understand a page. So for Google to turn around and say they don't use any kind of OCR on images, I think is kind of suspect and strange. And those of us that have been around for a while that don't believe everything Google says, I thought this was a news piece that made me go, weird. So, they're making a statement, and again, this younger generation in our industry will just take this article, well, it's Barry Schwartz, it's Search Engine Roundtable, he talked to a Googler, so it must be true. So I don't know. So anyone else thoughts? Do you think they use OCR on images or not?
Yeah,
I think they do when it's to their advantage.
The big difference is that question was in regards to the crawler, and the crawler definitely does not render anything. That was in the document that I talked about earlier that Doc posted. So
they're not getting. They can.
It's not happening in the crawler. It's happening after indexation, and that's when they render the actual documents.
Yeah, actually, in the chat there, Steve's talking about something interesting. Because we've also got friends that work with the Google walkarounds, and they take pictures and all that good stuff. So we know they also use the image data as well, right, Steve? Is that what you're kind of intimating there? Yeah. Yeah. Because we know they have the technology in place to use image data and stuff like that as well. So it just seems like a counterintuitive statement. And like you're saying, Terry, maybe they're doing the old Google thing where they're only answering that singular. They're not saying the broader picture.
Right. Yeah, they're answering it in the terms of they're not using it as any sort of element in the algorithm for ranking. That type of angle.
No, that's not what they were saying. Sorry, Frank. They were saying
I haven't read it.
Don't use it. The crawler does not render anything. So, of course, it can't. The crawler cannot see text in an image.
Okay.
It was which just showed the SEO, right? That was asking the question. Again, didn't really know how things work.
How to frame the question. Right.
How to frame the question, correct.
Anyways, Ammon, hello, sir. No,
no,
no, Steve, bro.
I'm just
Oh,
home
I
from
can't
work,
see you.
but I haven't had a chance to set up at all. But I jumped in because I saw Ozzy there, and I realised, look, isn't it sad that that's the days you can see the children there? Little did he know that one of them would grow up to be a social media manager.
Yeah,
You know, the
exactly.
shame is
There he is.
on the image thing.
Wait. Not if she's coding correctly, which I guarantee you she is.
On the image thing, it's one of those things.
Or it's great.
I don't think OCR was computationally efficient. It doesn't scale. You know, Google, they're all about scale. OCR uses too much resources compared to what that could be doing instead. Google's main use for graphics cards and you know, using that kind of processing is in machine learning. Graphics cards are the tool in machine learning because of the number of cores being able to run so many different things at a time. The idea of being able to crawl text in images, yeah, it's possible, it's just not efficient, so they don't do it. And we know they don't do it because one of the ways we used to hide things was to put it in an image. You put that text in an image, Google does not know it's there unless you're stupid about how you name the image.
Let's maybe throw it. Yeah, exactly. Maybe a spam bot or something of a more granular level might use that kind of technology.
Google can see. I can see where the SEO might ask the question because Google does have that capability.
Like, do any of you guys do like a lot of work on YouTube? I can tell you for a fact, I don't care if it's music, image, or anything else, Google's technology for copyright shit over there is incredible.
Yeah.
Steve, you put your hand up there?
Yeah.
It's really hard to slip shit by their fucking algos over there, man. It is.
Also, their captioning, when you get their transcript, it's a lot better than most of the ones you find anywhere else.
Oh, really?
It's sure a lot better than it used to be.
But that's it. Nobody asked if Alphabet uses OCR.
No.
You know, some parts of the company will. Google, though, the search engine, doesn't. I don't think it scales well enough. I don't think there is enough benefit for them to be worth it.
Our next piece of news today is something that Media Post Lori Sullivan came to me. Yes, I'm relevant again, boys. Somebody asked me.
Gotta love Lori.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so anyways, I thought this was interesting. So see, it was last Friday. Google made some announcement that bloggers are now responsible for products they review and shit like that. Now, this has been in the FTC for a while because I went back and the FTC change was about a year and a half ago, Terry, I think, something like that.
Really?
But so what I basically told her, but what used to happen, and I'll give an example. I had a client that, well, he was a dojo member, a friend of ours. Anyways, he came to me and Terry. Remember the brownies, Terry? Brownies? Anyways, so they had sent out a bunch of brownies to bloggers. Now, they did not, and I talked to Matt Cutts about this one, the whole 9 yards, Ammon, because I really wouldn't, Matt, I wanted to talk and say, listen, fuck you. Anyways, Ammon. Yes. Ammon's here. Yes, I know. It's so exciting. See, my wife even knows who you are. You are famous. Anyways, so he comes to us and he says, listen, we just got spanked by Google. And I was like, well, what happened? He's like, well, we sent out a bunch of product samples, brownies in this case, to a bunch of bloggers. Now, bloggers being what they are, linked back, instead of with a company name, they linked back with the word, tasty brownies or awesome brownies or whatever. The anchor text was always something along those lines. And so that influx came in. Google shat on their fucking head. But at the end of the day, he hadn't done anything wrong, per se. He did not ask for a link. He did not say, give us a link. He just said, here, check out these brownies and write about them if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I kind of had it out with Matt. I was like, well, listen, man, I'm in this situation. I know about this situation. Nobody asked for a fucking link, and still you motherfuckers, you spanked them. And so funny enough, I think, Terry, that's when Matt came back with us. Well, first you got to be concerned about which blog it's on. If they're writing about duct tape in one post and fucking brownies the next, you might not want to be there, and so on and so on.
That's also when he mentioned that they had a history.
Yes, yeah. Well, okay. For all transparency, you know, back in 2006, and I think this was 2010 when we were talking to Matt about this. Anyway, so back in 2006, some guy named Jim Boykin used to work on that site. So that should tell you enough. Enough said there. Okay.
You're lucky I don't have my camera. I'd go and get my Internet Marketing Ninjas shirt.
Anyway, so what I think about this news story is that, and Terry, I don't mind this at least, and to a degree, is that they've turned that microscope around on the bloggers, and that's what I tried to explain to Lori. I was like, okay, this is new. You know, products for links has always been a bad thing. Anybody with half a fucking brain's known this for a long fucking time. Mm-hmm. It's just the first time Google turned around and put it on the bloggers, which I think, Terry, they should have done originally. Again, don't put the onus on the marketer. Put it on the receiver. Put it on the receiving end. You know what I mean? Let them understand that, you know, they have to put transparency at the bottom of that blog post saying, we did receive a product from this, but no way does that influence our writing and da-da-da, so on and so on. And make sure that the links are to a fucking company, not to, you know, a keyword and shit like that.
To an extent, this is...
The FCC puts it on the blogger more than they do the product. And Google puts it on the product.
And I think that's the way it should have always been with Google. Like, why spank us being trying to promote our shit? Because, again, this poor bastard, bloggers just know they should use keyword-rich anchors. He didn't. I read the emails he sent out to these people when he sent the product, and there was nothing about links anywhere. You know what I mean? They literally got in shit because of the way the bloggers linked to them.
Yeah. Disavow.
Yeah, big time.
Hey, look, at the bottom line is, for a long time, those same laws were in place. They could have busted all kinds of people. They don't bust anybody. Bottom line. And
if you remember,
with
this was a thing that came into the news from the FTC changes to the regulations about a year ago.
Year and a half, 2 years ago. Yeah, it's about a year change, yeah.
So I think this is pretty much just Google updating to be in line with those statements. I don't think there's literally anything more to it than that. I think trying to read more into it
that is exactly
when people try to read.
Yeah, Lori she thought it was news, and I pretty much told her the same thing you just said. That, you know, those of us in the know, this has been there for a long time. So.
Well, we'll see. Might be something written in the next couple of days. Turns out a lot of content.
It's one of those things, isn't it? If somebody has sent you something in the hopes that you will then blog and link about it, doesn't matter whether they've actually asked or not. If you go along with it, it's still a bribe of a sort.
So what if I'm blogging for myself and it's a startup? One of my startups.
Yeah, then it's your decision whether to take that risk or not.
Yeah, exactly. I think the onus being on the blogger. I think the onus being on the blogger is a better way to go about it. You know, I don't think the onus should be on the marketer.
Yeah.
Okay. This was actually this was in the news, and so I just want to put it out there because again, I have been I am somewhat in tune with the younger generation. Manual actions do not last forever, but can be reapplied. This is an interesting one, Terry, because I've actually had people come to me that were, I guess, near the end of their action. I've literally had a client that, while I was in negotiations with them for some forensic work, by the time I got paid, went to their Google Webmaster account, it was gone. I was like, okay. And I was like, dude, you don't have a manual action. And they're like, well, yeah, we did. We got. I was like, well, when did you get that? Well, about a year ago. And I'm like, okay, well. And yeah, this is actually a fact, and I know this from personal experience, not just from some Googler fucking saying it. Yeah, Google manual actions do actually disappear after time, which it could be good or bad. Like if you haven't been taking steps to correct it, then you probably want to get on it. But if you have been, I've seen again that one instance I'm talking about. They were working before me, and then while I was there to correct the problems, and it never came back.
Dave. David, may I add this though?
David, I'm in trouble with my mom.
When you're looking at link building activity that caused a manual, a lot of the sites, when you go to check, are gone. Those sites are gone. They're out of the link graph because they've been shut down, right? I've seen literally 90% of backlinks gone where the sites just disappeared. So when they're gone out of the link graph, the penalty's gone, isn't it? So that stuff can happen, you know, like a game. Do you really understand how these things work? And personally, I would rather get a manual penalty than get a penguin penalty. Because the penguin just sits there chomping on your ass forever.
Absolutely.
A manual is one and done. You fix it,
Well, it's something you can
stop
address.
the activity, and you're okay. But with penguin, it's always there, biting on your bag. Ass.
And I think even again, you know, I spent 5 years in forensics, and I think to a degree that why I agree with you is that the guideline, our understanding of what it takes to get it and what it takes to get out of a panda or a penguin. Like, you know, you and I did forensics for fucking many years together, Terry. And I remember talking to Matt about that one site of yours. We had no idea that was a panda hit, did we?
No.
You know,
When he told us that, we learned a lot.
It was only, when Matt told us that thing had a fucking panda hit, you and I, as experts in the forensic field, you and I had no idea.
I could not believe it. Like, literally.
Yeah, I didn't either. Yeah, but Matt literally said, you know, that was a panda thing, and we were like, what the fuck? It was like, okay. You know, so yeah. You know, I think that those panda and penguin are a lot tougher to deal with than manuals.
Well, it's different.
Well, they tell you, you fixed it. With panda and penguin, you never really know whether you fixed the problem or not. Because you may have only...
There's no feedback. There's no feedback. There's no feedback, right? You don't have a communication. You don't have a platform to talk to Google about those.
And that's why...
Go ahead.
You clean up. But what happens, though, is, you know, especially in a penguin situation, one, you know, the certain websites are going to be downgraded themselves, so all of a sudden that link power that you were getting from them is gone, so you're dropping because of that. Then you've got, as Terry was saying, you've got places that aren't there anymore. They're gone, you know, but you've got, it's that play. They still seem to have part of it cached in the results of your link profiles, even when you know, were managing it through Google. And, you know, some of that stuff's gone, but you've got that carryover of the anchor text impact on Penguin. And, you know, it's just the updates don't take place. You end up losing ranking. And then what a lot of people aren't doing is, well, you got to replace all that shit. Do it legitimately. But if you're not replacing it, you're not moving. You know, Penguin banged you down, but you know, and you do the cleanup. That doesn't automatically pop you back up because all of the things that helped you get up in the first place are gone now. And a lot of people
also,
seeing that.
Frank, not to cut you off, but the big thing is you've lost trust and authority. So now you have to work even harder. So getting even back the same amount of links with the same quality, you have to work harder.
No, I agree. That's what I'm saying. You know, all this stuff happens, and then you think by getting rid of the offenders that, you know, you should pop back up. That it's all the stuff that the offenders were doing and the trust and all that stuff that you lose. You know, that people aren't doing that. You know, and you got to get back to square one again. You know, and build and, you know, find good quality sites, create more internal content, et cetera, et cetera. You know the drill.
Yeah.
But they just, again, they don't quite understand the whole mechanism. So they're just thinking, if I fix this, oh, I should pop back up. Why am I popping back up? It's like, wow, you really just don't fully get it.
I also think that the algorithmic penalties, such as Panda and Penguin, and all the ones we don't know the names of, they're trickier because they're kind of threshold levels. And I don't think, you know, a human decision is usually either yes or no. They don't rate it on a scale of 1 to 100. Whereas with threshold stuff, it's degrees. You've got degrees of panda and penguin, and yeah, you may take it down a bit, you may dial it up a bit, but I don't think you ever completely get rid of it.
Was the usual shit. I really hadn't paid much attention to RankBrain, and so somebody brought it up because of this wonderful distilled article that is not a clickbaity title at all. Okay. Anyways, by the way, to which I'm not going to bring the page up now, but Barry Schwartz was reporting later this week. This was last Friday, this article. That someone asked a Googler, and the Googler said, no, was his only answer, 2 words. I loved it. Yeah, it's got nothing to do with things. Anyways, so within about an hour of researching when I was asked this question, I came up with this. Okay, hold on. Let me give you this first. Let's go back. Okay, here's where it all started. Was this, oh, really? A Bloomberg article. And in the Bloomberg article last October, someone asked a Googler, and the Googler said essentially
most important.
The whole concept. Well, no, he was saying, yeah, I'm going to find this because this is literally and this harkens back to a lot of discussions we had today about the youth of today. Listen to us, we're like old guys. Them new young fellas, them little young people, back in my day, we walked 20 miles in the snow to understand the Google patent. Anyway. Let me find it.
There's 2 things that have spawned this. One is the famous quote, RankBrain is now the 3rd most important ranking signal, without saying what the first 2 are, and I teased him and said, yeah, number 1 is everything you get from putting a URL in, number 2 is everything else, and then comes RankBrain. So it's one of those things, you know, RankBrain, yes, it's kind of important.
You're close friends with my buddy Bill, and we often think the same way. And within an hour, I found this project here called Word2Vec. And essentially, what Google has said about RankBrain is that it takes words and turns them into vectors. Within about an hour, I found this whole project from Google called Word2Vec, which essentially does the same thing. So I guess my point being that, again, you know, why does the new generation need to be spoon-fed? Why is there this fucking need to, like, literally, dude, it took me like half an hour to find this project. And it's essentially what RankBrain does. It's turning words into vectors. So it's a semantic analysis approach. And to a degree,
my latest understanding is that RankBrain is doing something a bit different. You remember what Hummingbird did? It put much more.
Yeah, well, no, but you gotta remember, right? Whoa. RankBrain.
Hold on, I'm not there. I'm not.
Okay, but RankBrain is a subset of Hummingbird. It's a subset of Hummingbird, though. It feeds into Hummingbird.
This is the AI bit that bolts on. RankBrain is allowed to run its own A/B testing on queries it can't quite work out.
Right.
Because Gary Ilias has said,
right.
I think today there was a thing from Gary saying,
I'm going to send you that link. I'm going to send you that link to that Word2Vec thing, man. You've got to read it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're totally right. And I think, you know, again, okay, there's 2, well, I think of many things, but along the lines of what you're saying, yeah, it's a correlation tool almost to an extent. It's looking at search quality in a correlation element. One of the engineers said something really interesting that I was telling Terry before the show. One of the guys who worked on this, and you know me and Bill, as soon as we read a patent, we research the guys who wrote it. So the same thing. When I approached this RankBrain thing, I went and researched the guys right back to their fucking uni days and everything else. And it was interesting. One of the guys was saying that when he first came up with it, he went to whoever his superior was and said, look, this seems to be improving search quality in our limited testing, but I don't know why. And his boss said, well, don't worry about why. Just worry about if it's improving it. And then we'll go back later and figure out why it's improving search quality. You know what I mean? And that was basically the story the guy was telling. And I was like, well, that's kind of neat. So, yeah, and again, from what I can tell, not in a generalized sense, but in a certain aspect, is that it's a semantic analysis tool. But instead of looking at semantic analysis in the word, like they used to do with phrase-based and other stuff, it's turning it into numbers. And so you can tweak the numbers a lot easier than you can tweak words. Words are very viscous, and so you can't really tweak them as easily algorithmically. Whereas this is turning words into numbers and putting it on a vector graph, which is much easier to tweak, much easier to implement and change, turn the dial, so to speak, right?
Yeah, and I think what's particularly interesting for RankBrain and what might have led to that third most important factor is, of course, by looking at what RankBrain did to improve a set of results, it's kind of giving them a training set to test on the bigger algorithm constantly.
Which is also in line with which is also in line to what Terry said before the show. It's in line with their desire to go towards artificial intelligence and that kind of like adaptive learning. Yeah, that makes more sense. It lends itself to that so much easier.
How are
AI and machine intelligence get to make their own connections up. They can spot that when the thing does this, it tends to mean this, and full machine learning can make connections we would never have made as a human. The RankBrain version doesn't have the ability to add its own levers and dials. It can only use the measurements already in the algorithm, but it is allowed to tweak in real time.
I don't want to make it clear to folks that it from anything I've read so far, and I'm a guy who digs in this shit, it is a subset of Hummingbird. It feeds into Hummingbird. You know what I mean? It's Hummingbird still makes, again, scoring is a very limited thing these days, I find. That scoring is on a very primitive level, and everything after that is boosting and dampening. You know what I mean? And I know that a lot of people consider that to be semantics, but it's not. It's huge. Like you have dampening factors on authority, you have dampening factors on trust, you have boosting factors on bullshit like HTTPS, which could be that big. So who cares? But yeah, from what I understand, again, I've got a couple of weeks in on this shit, so I'm no expert, but it does seem like it's feeding into Hummingbird at the end of the day.
See, the question that I have is like what you were mentioning, where the guy said it's improving the search results, so let's not screw with it. How do they determine that it's improving the search results?
Frank, what I could tell from this project, it's almost a correlation factor. Consider this. Let's say semantic analysis in the way we've always known it, from phrase-based to other forms, Markov models and bullshit, that was almost itself an analysis process. Whereas what RankBrain seemed to is almost tear that apart, put it into a numerical form, and compare that against click data, compare that against so on and so on, a correlation set to see if their semantic analysis and understanding of a concept on a page is working or not, and then dampen or boost based upon that. You know what I mean? RankBrain seems to almost be a step up in the world. Like I was reading, like the Google research blog is a cool place to hang out, and they had a whole thing on there the other day about neuropsychological models and how we understand them. If we make the wrong assumption, the whole thing goes to shit. So the initial assumption on those algorithmic models is huge because you make one little misstep and everything goes to hell. And this almost seems like a check and a balance, I guess, maybe to put it that way. It seems like it's a check balance situation, whereas instead of trying to understand, like I was saying to Terry on Skype, I painted the White House with lower capitals on White House is totally different than saying I painted the White House with upper capitals on White House, because then you've painted the fucking White House. Yeah. So, but that same sentence can be taken by a semantic analysis situation very differently.
And you could also put terrorist sniffer.
Yeah, no, see, the thing that I was, the thing that, when they say this whole thing about the quality, obviously, and as you mentioned, there's a certain amount of the measurable is click-through rate. A certain amount would be how many times people go up and requalify the search. You know what I mean? that part of it is
Yeah,
what
but
I'm really
yeah.
not.
Again, I think this is almost more the reason the word rank is even in it, and I don't know why they chose that wording because that just makes SEOs go.
Yeah.
But think of it like a fire, like your garden hose, right? And here's all the semantic analysis coming up the garden hose, right? And it's flowing out the end. And up till now, they've had classifications. They've had tokenisms, and as Terry likes to call it, they've had ways of classifying these concepts and entities and whatever. What I think RankBrain is that thumb on the end that focuses it and makes the stream come out in a finer focus and more powerful. And I think that's why rank is in the term. I'm just hypothesis here. I have no fucking idea. I don't work for Google. So. Yeah. But I think it's that thumb on the end that takes all that semantic concepts and focuses it. Meaning that's where the dampener and that's where the dampener and the degrade. That's where they put value on that semantic analysis. That rank, because again, it's about words. Like that link I shared earlier, and I'll go put this in the chat actually. Go have a read through this, Frank. I'll put it in the chat here in the room. But I think what the concept might be, based upon what I've found so far, is that it's almost that thumb on the end of the fire hose. It's almost that function. By turning words into vectors, does what we're thinking with phrase-based, with Markov models, with latent semantics, does all this learning we've done here actually do anything? Is it improving search results? Is it having an end result? Because you got to remember, Amit Singhal was always big on search quality. I remember even talking to Matt, and he'd sit at the tables, and when they'd have their meetings and stuff, he felt like he was like the black sheep. That spam's great, but we want to, we care more about search results. And he always felt kind of that way. I knew it was a frustration of his. And this almost takes that sort of semantic thing and focuses it with a ranking score of some kind. Because you did to a degree in the semantic stuff. You had some elements you could dampen and boost on, but not a lot. I'm starting to wonder, the more I read, if RankBrain is geared towards that actual ranking element of that understanding of a page and the understanding of the words and the concepts and the phrases therein.
I think a large
stuff like page. Go ahead.
A large part of this is when search engines talk about ranking, they are literally talking about the order in which they return results, because you've got a set of results and then you rank them, and that's pretty much what RankBrain is doing. It's not adding any results into the list that wouldn't have been there otherwise, and well, I mean, it can be putting them above a threshold. It's not adding anything into the index that's new. It's not.
But are they using contextual?
Whether it's relevant or not.
Are they using contextual information on that they've gathered on a particular searcher? Are they using the device that's being used to give them an indicator of what to because you see that now. If you're using and you put in pizza.
Consider the very beginning. Consider the beginning of this Word2Vec project. The Word2Vec tool takes corpus as an input and produces word vectors as an output. It first constructs a vocabulary from the training text data and then learns, boys, big word there, learns vector representation of the words. The resulting word vector file can then be used as a feature in many natural language processing and machine learning applications. So again, it seems to be, going beyond what we would consider traditional semantic analysis of a page and the words on it. It's actually giving value representation, which leads you to scoring elements like boosting and dampening, right? So I don't know.
That's kind of how Google's been dealing with term vectors for a long time now. So that part isn't
right. But again, you're talking more phrases and concepts and supporting correlating
actual word vectors. I first came up with that when we were discussing theme analysis back in 2009. Google were already using word vectors.
Sure, for sure.
So
for sure.
It is a core part.
I would venture back to the Anna Patterson days, 2003. Google bought it in 2004. You remember she had Cool? Remember she left? She took the whole phrase-based thing and she left fucking Google and started Cool with CUIL, I believe it was.
Yep. It's funny. It's the second time that's come up this month, and I haven't heard a call in years. And then
No,
twice
I
in a
know.
month.
I've
Well,
heard
there
it.
you go, buddy. Just for you.
I've heard it. Oh.
One of the things that I thought was interesting, not to mention what I read this morning in the paper that Doc dropped in the thing from the guy who's like a ranking guy for Google. His job is to write code that re-ranks stuff in the results. His paper, that slide deck was so interesting because it showed exactly how that system works. And, you know, I agree with what you're saying, Dave, but I think that's earlier in the process than it's probably related and the back end to RankBrain. But I agree with Ammon that from the little bit that I've read, RankBrain seems to be about testing the results and trying to keep them as relevant as possible at all times.